Right, module 4, the life cycle or the life of a hive over a year. So there's three time spans in a hive's life. The first one is the first year when a colony moves in. The bees move in spring. They then create lots of honey. They fill the hive up with comb, and they then establish themselves, and then that winter they overwinter, and they get a feel for how much insulation they have for that environment and how much bees they can have over winter for the amount of honey that they need for the insulation that they have. So the first year is a learning curve. That's why it's not so clever to get bees that are from far away. You want to have local bees because they'll have some of that knowledge already. They'll then overwinter. So the first winter is always a bit of a struggle. Second year, even though it's not the same bees, it's still the same genetic line, and they do have some sort of built-in memory. And then once they've been through the second winter, after that they're pretty tough, and they'll go on for years. So the first year it's quite a struggle. Then once they've established themselves, then they will chug along quite happily for years and years, and they will be able to, if they've got the space, they'll be able to move wax around, and they'll be able to live quite happily. If the space is quite small, what they'll do is they'll only be able to live there for about 5 to 7 years until they can't use the wax where they put the brood in because the cell size gets too small, and because they don't have the luxury of space to be able to move stuff around, they then just abscond, and then the whole process starts again once that space has been cleared out by wax moth and other bugs. So you have three distinctive phases in the hives, in a colony, in a space's life cycle. So the bee's life cycle within that space, they overwinter on the honey. That's the only reason why they make honey, is so that they can overwinter because they can't hibernate. In the springtime, the hive's only got a small population. In the springtime, the queen moves away from the honey. She moves into the brood area and she starts laying like crazy, and she fills that whole space up with bees. They're now not overcrowded and you have to give them space. Trees don't change shape. They then fill that space up with as many bees as they can, and then the queen that's in there, that's overwintered, she leaves, because the queen is always trying to leave. This is why beekeepers cut their wings off and they're called beekeepers, because they're trying to keep the bees and not have half of them leave once or twice during the season. The queen that's there, she then flies off with half the bees. The bees that are remaining, they will make a new queen. They will then mate. They'll fight, one will be left over, and she will take over the hive, and then straight away she is wanting to then leave. Once they've come to the end of the season and they kick all the drones out, it's just the queen and her workers. They will die back, and then she will overwinter, and as soon as she can in the springtime, she'll move down and start laying like crazy. That whole system is dependent on one little bug, the queen. So sometimes it goes wrong. Sometimes they'll fight once they've mated, and they'll both die, and then they have to try and make another one, and sometimes it peters out. So it's a very fragile system, but it's still a very robust system. That's chapter 4.